The sign on the door said, "Closed," but Sarah didn't care about signs anymore, not when the temperature in Chicago had dropped to 6 degrees, not when she hadn't eaten a real meal in 2 days, and certainly not when the little girl holding her hand looked up and whispered the words that broke her heart every single time, "Mommy, my tummy hurts." Sarah tightened her grip on Lily's small, gloved hand. She looked through the glass of the gilded fork. Inside, it was warm. She could see the fire in the hearth. She could see people laughing, people with homes, people with full bank accounts, and she could see the food, plates of untouched steak being carried away, baskets of bread that would end up in the trash. Sarah took a breath. The air was so cold, it felt like swallowing knives. She pushed the door open. The warmth hit her first. Then, the smell. Roasted garlic, rosemary, rich red wine. It smelled like a life she used to have. A waiter in a black vest stepped in front of her immediately. He didn't say anything. He just looked at her coat. It was too big, frayed at the cuffs. A thrift store find that had seen better decades, let alone better days. Then he looked at Lily. Lily was clean, her hair was brushed. Sarah always made sure of that, but Lily looked tired. The kind of tired a 6-year-old shouldn't know about. "Can I help you?" the waiter asked. His tone wasn't mean. It was worse. It was dismissive. Sarah swallowed her pride. She had swallowed it so many times lately. She was surprised there was any left. "I know you're closing," she said. Her voice shook. "Not from the cold, from the shame. I was just wondering if you have any leftovers, anything you were going to throw away." The waiter sighed. He looked around, hoping none of the paying guests had heard. "Ma'am, we don't do that here. It's against policy. Liability issues." "Please," Sarah said. She wasn't begging for herself. She would starve before she begged for herself. She was begging for the little hand squeezing hers. "Just some bread or soup. I'll pay you when I get paid next week. I just need, excuse me." The voice came from behind the waiter. It was deep, rough, the sound of heavy tires on gravel. The waiter froze. He straightened his back instantly. "Mr. Sterling," he said, "I was just handling it." Sarah looked up. Marcus Sterling was a giant of a man. He was in his 60s, with silver hair and a suit that cost more than Sarah's old car. He was a legend in this city, a man who owned half the block, a man known for firing people if their tie was crooked. He stepped forward. He looked at Sarah. Then he looked down at Lily. His eyes were dark, hard to read. He didn't smile. He looked back at the waiter. "Is there a problem here?" he asked. "The woman was asking for handouts, sir," the waiter said quickly. "I was just escorting her out." Marcus Sterling looked at Sarah again. His gaze felt heavy. It felt like he was weighing her soul. He looked at her worn boots, her red hands. And then he saw it. Pinned to the collar of her frayed coat was a small gold pin. It was tiny. Most people wouldn't notice it, but Marcus noticed it. His eyes widened, just for a second. Then the mask came back down. He looked at the waiter. "Set table 4, he said. The waiter blinked. "Sir?" "I said set table 4, Marcus said. His voice didn't rise, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. "Bring them the ribeye, 2 orders, and the truffle mac and cheese, and hot chocolate for the girl." Sarah felt her knees go weak. "Mr. Sterling," she stammered. "I can't pay for that. I just wanted." "I didn't ask if you could pay," Marcus said. He turned his back on her and walked toward his office. "Sit down, eat," and then he closed his office door without looking back. Sarah didn't know it then. She couldn't possibly know, but that meal wasn't a gift. It was a test, and she was about to face the hardest question of her life. The steak was perfect. Sarah cut it into tiny pieces for Lily. She watched her daughter eat. She watched the color come back to Lily's pale cheeks. For 20 minutes, the world stopped being a scary place. For 20 minutes, they were just people having dinner. Sarah ate slowly. She savored every bite, but her stomach was tied in knots. Why was he doing this? Men like Marcus Sterling didn't just give away $100 steaks. She had learned the hard way that nothing in this world is free. There was always a catch, always a price tag hidden somewhere. As they finished the last of the mac and cheese, the waiter returned. He looked different now. "Nervous? Mr. Sterling would like to see you in his office," he said. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. This was the part where he asked for something in return, or maybe he was going to call the police. Maybe he thought she had stolen that pin on her collar. She wiped Lily's face with a napkin. "Stay here with the nice man," she told her daughter. "Mommy will be right back." She stood up. Her legs felt heavy. She walked to the heavy oak door at the back of the restaurant. She knocked. "Come in." She opened the door. Marcus was sitting behind a desk that looked like it belonged in a museum. He was counting cash, stacks of it, the night's deposit. He didn't look up when she entered. "Close the door," he said. Sarah closed it. She stood there, her hands clasping each other to stop the shaking. "That was a good meal," Marcus said, still counting. "Yes, sir, thank you, it was. It was the best meal we've had in a long time." "Good," Marcus said. He finally looked up. His face was hard, unreadable. "The bill comes to $240, he said. Sarah felt the air leave the room. I told you," she whispered. "I can't pay. You ate the food," Marcus said. "You sat at my table. My staff served you, but you said—" "I said set the table," Marcus interrupted. "I never said it was free." Sarah felt tears stinging her eyes. This was cruel. This was a sick game. "Why would you do this?" she asked. Her voice cracked. "Why would you give us hope? Just to take it away?" Marcus stood up. He walked around the desk. He leaned against the front of it, crossing his arms. He looked big, dangerous. "I don't run a charity," he said coldly. "I run a business." Sarah looked at the door. She could run, she could grab Lily and run, but she knew she wouldn't make it, and she wasn't a thief. She took a deep breath. She straightened her spine. She looked him in the eye. "I can't pay you money," she said. "I don't have it." She paused. "But I have 2 hands." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "I'll work it off," she said. "I'll wash dishes. I'll scrub the floors. I'll clean the toilets. I don't care what it is. I pay my debts." Marcus stared at her. The silence stretched out. 5 seconds, 10. He was looking for something, a crack in her armor, a sign of weakness. But Sarah didn't look away. She had lost her house. She had lost her husband. She had lost her dignity. But she still had her honor. "Fine," Marcus said. He pointed to a door on the left. "The kitchen is that way. The dishwasher quit 2 hours ago. The pots are piled to the ceiling. You finish them and we call it even." Sarah nodded. "Thank you," she said. She turned to leave. "One more thing," Marcus said. She stopped. "Take off the coat. It's hot in the kitchen." Sarah hesitated. She reached up and unbuttoned the frayed gray coat. She folded it carefully. Making sure the little gold pin was safe, she placed it on a chair. Then she walked into the kitchen. The kitchen was a war zone. Grease, steam, noise. The chefs were yelling orders. Waiters were rushing in and out. And in the corner, the sink was buried under a mountain of dirty metal. Burnt pans, caked-on cheese, sauce that had hardened like cement. Sarah didn't complain. She rolled up her sleeves, she put on the heavy rubber apron, and she went to work. The water was scalding hot. The steel wool tore at her fingernails, her back ached. Her feet throbbed, but she didn't stop. For 3 hours, she scrubbed. She thought about Lily sitting in the dining room. She hoped she was safe. She thought about David. Oh, David, he would have hated this. He would have hated seeing her like this. But he wasn't here, so she had to be strong enough for both of them. She scrubbed until her hands were raw. She scrubbed until she couldn't feel her fingers by the time she finished. The kitchen was silent. The chefs had gone home. The lights were dimmed. The pots were stacked, shinier than they had been when they were new. Sarah wiped her forehead with the back of her hand. She untied the apron. She walked out into the dining room. It was empty, except for one table, table 4. Marcus was sitting there, and next to him was Lily. Panic surged through Sarah. She rushed forward, but then she stopped. Lily was asleep. Her head was resting on a folded tablecloth. Her small body rose and fell in a peaceful rhythm, and Marcus, the giant, terrifying man, was sitting there reading a book, but he wasn't just reading. One of his large hands was resting gently on the table, just inches from Lily's hand, not touching her, protecting her. He heard Sarah approach. He closed the book. He looked at her hands. They were red, swollen. "You missed a spot," he said. Sarah's heart sank. "Where?" "I scrubbed everything." "I'm joking," Marcus said. It was the first time his voice sounded human. He stood up. He walked over to the coat rack where Sarah had left her jacket. He picked it up. He ran his thumb over the little gold pin on the collar. "Where did you get this?" he asked. Sarah went still. "It was my husband's," she said softly. "He was a Marine," Marcus asked. Sarah nodded. "He died 2 years ago, not in the war. Here, cancer. The VA didn't cover everything. We lost the house trying to save him." Marcus looked at the pin, the gold star. He knew what it meant. It meant a family had sacrificed everything. "What was his name?" Marcus asked. "David," Sarah said. "David Miller." Marcus went quiet. He turned the coat over in his hands. "David Miller," he repeated. He looked up at Sarah. "Did he ever talk about a man named Gunny?" Sarah frowned. "Yes," she said. "He talked about him all the time. He said Gunny was the toughest man he ever met. He said Gunny saved his whole platoon in Fallujah." Marcus nodded slowly. He reached into his pocket. He pulled out a wallet. He took out an old, creased photograph. He handed it to Sarah. She took it. Her hands were shaking. It was a picture of a group of young soldiers in the desert, dusty, tired, smiling. In the middle was a young David. He looked so happy. and standing next to him with an arm around his shoulder was an older man, a sergeant. Sarah looked at the sergeant's face. Then she looked at Marcus. The eyes were the same. "You," she whispered, "you're gunny." Marcus took the photo back. His hand wasn't steady either. "I looked for him," Marcus said. His voice was thick. "When I got out, I started this business. I wanted to hire him. I wanted to help him, but I couldn't find him. Miller is a common name." He looked at Lily sleeping on the table. "He told me about you," Marcus said, "in the quiet nights, when we were scared. He told me about the girl waiting for him back home. He said you were the only thing keeping him alive." Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks. She didn't wipe them away. "He saved me," Marcus said. He tapped his chest. "I took shrapnel that was meant for him, but he carried me 2 miles on a broken ankle. If it wasn't for your husband, I wouldn't have this restaurant. I wouldn't have this life. I wouldn't have breath in my lungs." Sarah sobbed, a sound that had been held back for 2 years. Marcus stepped forward. The hard businessman was gone. He put a hand on her shoulder. "I didn't know it was you when you walked in," he said. "But when I saw that pin, I had to be sure. I had to know if you had his spirit." He looked toward the kitchen. "You worked for 3 hours to pay a debt you didn't owe. You have his honor, Sarah." He reached into his jacket pocket again. This time he didn't pull out a photo. He pulled out a set of keys. He placed them in Sarah's raw, red hand. "What is this?" she asked. "My apartment upstairs." Marcus said. "It's empty. It has 2 bedrooms, a warm bath, a kitchen. It's yours." "No," Sarah said. "I can't." "You can," Marcus said firmly, "and you will, and tomorrow morning you're not going to look for a job because you have one. I need a manager who understands hard work. I need someone I can trust. I need a partner." Sarah looked at the keys, then at her sleeping daughter, then at the man who had been a ghost in her husband's stories. "Why?" she asked. Marcus smiled. A real smile this time. It reached his eyes, because he said, "David wouldn't let my family sleep in the cold, so I'm not going to let his." That night, for the first time in months, Sarah didn't sleep in a car. She slept in a bed with clean sheets that smelled like lavender. She gave Lily a bath in a tub full of bubbles, and before she turned out the light, she walked to the window. She looked down at the snowy street below. It was still freezing outside. The wind was still howling, but she couldn't feel it. She held the little gold pin in her hand. She kissed it. "Good night, David," she whispered. And for the first time in a long time, she knew he could hear her. She wasn't alone anymore. The world was still hard. The world was still cold, but kindness, real kindness, was a fire that could burn through anything, even the darkest winter, even the deepest grief. Sarah closed her eyes, and finally, she slept.